Discover how Jesus' words challenge us to live his righteousness, not just follow rules. Are our hearts truly aligned with his purpose? In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus presents an astonishing perspective on the law. He states he did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. These words invite us to explore what living in righteousness truly means, going beyond the letter to the spirit of the law. As we delve into these verses from Matthew, we will uncover the deep truths in Jesus' declaration and consider how they challenge our daily lives. To fully appreciate Jesus' teaching in Matthew 5:17-20, it's crucial to understand the context in which he spoke. This scene unfolds early in his ministry, during the iconic Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus reveals the kingdom's values. At this time, Jewish life was deeply intertwined with the law of Moses, a complex set of commandments that governed spiritual and day-to-day conduct. The Jewish people cherished the law, believing it was given directly by God as a guide to righteousness. However, over time, traditions and additional rules had grown around it, creating what some viewed as an overwhelming burden. Against this backdrop, Jesus' assertion about fulfilling the law sparked intense curiosity and, for some, confusion or contention. Jesus needed to clarify his mission amidst concerns that he was disregarding or revolutionizing traditional understanding. When he said, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them," he acknowledged the sacred significance of these teachings while establishing his authority and mission. Jesus pointed to the inadequate interpretations and ritual observances that had often missed the heart of God's commandments. Unlike the religious leaders who focused on external compliance, Jesus demonstrated and taught the deeper righteousness God desires, a righteousness stemming from love, mercy, and justice. As Jesus continued, he emphasized, "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished." With this, he underscored the enduring relevance and divine origin of the law, reinforcing that every part of it had purpose and power that would be brought to completion through his life, death, and resurrection. It wasn't about negating what was established, but elevating it to its intended glory through his fulfillment. He reinforced that whoever practiced and taught these commands would be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Setting an even higher standard, Jesus declared, "For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." This effectively turned the religious expectations of the day upside down. The Pharisees were known for their strict adherence to the letter of the law, but Jesus challenged his followers to exceed such righteousness by embracing the law's true spirit, centered on love and humility. This narrative, initially received by a society well versed in these religious texts, forces introspection even today. It asks us to re-examine how we view divine commands and pushes us toward introspection about our motivations and hearts in practicing our faith. It's a reminder that outward obedience needs to reflect inward transformation, a heart aligned with God's will, calling us to live out the profound intent behind his commandments. As we dissect Jesus' statement about fulfilling the law, we find profound layers of meaning that speak to his messianic purpose and divine authority. What does it truly mean that Jesus came to fulfill the law? The key lies in understanding the original purpose of God's commandments, to shape a people reflecting his character and to guide them in love and justice. The law was never merely about regulations, but about living in genuine relationship with God and one another. Jesus embodied the law's principles in perfect action. He lived a life that was a direct reflection of God's justice, mercy, and faithfulness, perfectly executing the authority and compassion the law intended to convey. When considering his life and teachings, we see the fulfillment as a manifestation of God's intention for humanity. Through his actions, Jesus demonstrated concepts like love, forgiveness, and grace, transcending mere obligation. With the mention of not altering even the smallest part of the law, the smallest letter or the least stroke, Jesus emphasized its divine authority. This statement ensured that nothing God declared would become obsolete or nullified. Every jot serves a purpose within God's plan, with final fulfillment seen in Jesus' sacrificial death and resurrection, where God's promises were ultimately realized. Moreover, Jesus' cautionary note about surpassing the righteousness of the Pharisees is instructive. The Pharisees were devout, meticulously following the law, yet their focus often resided in self-righteousness and outward appearances rather than heartfelt devotion. Jesus' teaching invites us toward a deeper authenticity, embodying a faith where love for God and neighbor transcends rigid legalism. This surpassing righteousness Jesus refers to isn't achieved through additional deeds or stricter rule following. Instead, it's a call to transformation, challenging us to let God's principles infiltrate our inner being, eliciting a life lived authentically in his path. It's an ongoing process of aligning ourselves with the heart of Christ, pursuing justice, mercy, and humility. Central to this fulfillment is Jesus' role as the Messiah, who perfectly interprets the Torah and actualizes its deepest intents. He offers a new way, entrance into a kingdom defined not just by covenantal laws, but by a relationship centered on his life and teachings. Jesus fulfilled the prophetic and legal obligations announced throughout Scripture, securing salvation for all who would believe in him. This intricate relationship between law, prophets, and gospel weaves a continuous narrative of God's unchanging purpose, calling humanity into restorative relationship with himself. Jesus didn't abolish the law's relevance. He lived its divine call, transforming understanding and lifting its hope into the hearts of believers. In grasping this truth, our response is crucial. As Jesus' disciples today, this fulfillment calls us to trust in his work, to live empowered by the Spirit, reflecting his righteousness in every aspect of our existence. It's less about doing more and more about becoming, resting in his completed work and expressing it through lives of genuine love and faithfulness. Now let's consider how Jesus' fulfillment of the law shapes our lives practically today. How do we embody this righteousness in a tangible way? Here are some ways to bring to life what Jesus taught about radically living out the law's intent. Firstly, it's crucial to focus on the heart. Jesus consistently pointed to the heart's condition as the true indicator of righteousness. Begin your day with inward reflection, asking if your intentions align with loving God and neighbor. Let your motives be driven by genuine compassion and humility, not obligation or recognition. Next, engage with Scripture not merely as a rule book, but as a revelation of God's character. Approach it prayerfully, seeking to understand how these teachings apply to your personal walk with Christ. As Jesus did, see beyond the words to the life they call us to live, a life exemplified by Christ. Additionally, let forgiveness and grace define your relationships. Where the law often called for justice, Jesus emphasized grace and forgiveness as the higher path. Be quick to forgive, love generously, and offer kindness, even when undeserved. Reflect the grace you have received through Christ to those around you. Practical service is another manifestation of living this righteousness. Look for ways to serve others in your community, following Jesus' example of compassion and care. Acts of service, whether simple gestures or grand efforts, not only meet tangible needs, but reflect the love of Jesus to the world. Lastly, community and accountability play a vital role. Surround yourself with fellow believers who encourage growth in your spiritual journey. Share burdens, celebrate victories, and engage in mutual edification, fueling each other's desire to follow Christ faithfully. Amidst these pursuits, remain anchored in prayer. It's in prayer that the Spirit continuously molds us, awakening our understanding and enabling us to live in God's will. Pray for wisdom, discernment, and the courage to act in accordance with God's heart. Remember, living out Christ's fulfilled law is not about earning righteousness, but resting in his finished work. Reflecting Jesus' righteousness means allowing his life to transform ours, expressing his love in every thought, word, and action. Jesus' fulfillment of the law calls each of us to a higher standard, not by works, but through a heart intimately connected with his own. Let these teachings move you beyond mere obligation into a life rich with purpose, overflowing with love. Reflect his righteousness today by engaging deeply with his word, loving abundantly, and serving selflessly. Subscribe to GGL Global Gospel Light for more insights as we continue to illuminate the timeless truths of Scripture. Let his light shine through you.